Can anybody hear anything? Rachel, I can't hear anything. Okay, good morning, everyone. Um, my name is Wale Shubuijo, Provost at WPI. Really, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this special session on the future of the Middle East. For our alums and for many of our students, faculty, and stakeholders, partners in this global endeavor, we start thinking about this idea of theory and practice represented by the two towers and the goal of our global school, which is to add this third tower of impact, according to the vision of our president. Next, please. And so as we kind of celebrate the launch of our global school, we're organizing these series of events to really bring us together as a global community. And we've had so far 3 of these global events. The launch that was held in October of last year, a special feature on Africa in November, and then a feature on Latin America in December. Today, it's truly a pleasure to welcome all of you to the 4th in our series of virtual events of the Global School, where we will really focus on thinking about the future of the Middle East. And our goal is to bring together all our key stakeholders, partners, alums, students, staff, faculty, into a discussion on our global programs and how we can really work together at this particular moment in time to use our STEM focus to address grand challenges and opportunities across the world. And in the Middle East, some of the themes include a focus on water and also a focus on global development. And for me, I like to think that pictures say a lot. And so I think nowhere in the world is development more apparent than in the Middle East. And so I want to start with just some pictures to tell the story. Next, please. If you look today at the picture of the Middle East today, it is clear evidence of incredible development over a short period of time. And these are pictures of Dubai today with an amazing announcement to the world of what the Middle East is going to be over time. And as we look at these pictures from some of the tallest and most impressive structures and skylines in the world, we really see a picture of a Middle East that is emerging and is growing in ways that are connecting to the future of work. Next, please. And this is true for Israel as well, where I've just taken these pictures that show different areas of Israel that are growing in ways that are truly spectacular and representative of what the Middle East is and what it will be. And these are not just towering skyscapes. Next, please. But they're also growth that's built on kibbutzes that are really learning how to transform the desert into very productive agricultural land, built on cutting edge technology, built on ecotourism, and nurturing many, many generations into a culture that's truly sustainable, that can be shared with the world. And with this kind of capabilities, we see the opportunities to take our projects, to take our collaborations in ways that can inform not just the Middle East, but other parts of the world. Next, please. And as you go beyond that, the excitement of the kind of unique entertainment and the kind of unique opportunities that we have in desert safaris that really create unique lifestyles that harness modernity and traditional approaches into the excitement of the 21st century. And as we go beyond this, next please, we see therefore a Middle East that spans across from North Africa, across the pyramids in Egypt, all the way through the mountains and valleys of Lebanon, to the modern cities in Qatar, and the amazing development is going on in places like Turkey, which is the gateway to the East and the West, and the opportunities to rebuild Iraq in ways that could connect to our global projects. And so this is, in my mind, a great opportunity for us to engage in partnerships and hopefully try to add value through collaboration with our partners across the Middle East. Next, please. So what do we bring to this? So for us at WPI, as we think about our global school, we see this as a global impact platform where we can bring our purpose-driven education, research, and outreach to work together with our partners to try to address local global challenges. And so, for example, in the Middle East, these might be challenges of water, or they may be challenges related to the environment. And we're trying to do this working with our partners to identify demand-driven group activities that can scale and that can have an impact through our collaborations with our partners. And so some of this is driven by research, some of this is driven by education and training, but really it's driven by partnership with different stakeholders that can hopefully work collaboratively with us in ways that allow us to co-create and contribute together to potential solutions. Next, please. So in the case of our projects in the Middle East, we're excited about Middle Eastern futures, to think about the Middle East beyond fossil fuels as a place where artificial intelligence, robotics, biomedical engineering will be part of what we bring into our collaborations with universities across the Middle East in ways that we hope will contribute to the lives of people. We're excited by the increasing role and profile of women, and as you can see from today's presentations, in ways that we believe will really drive the future beyond the COVID era. And we're excited, of course, about the role that we can play working together with partners in the Middle East to look at global challenges associated with water, which of course is a challenge in many places in the Middle East, but also an opportunity to learn from some of the solutions that are being tested and developed in the Middle East. Thinking about the energy beyond fossil fuels and even with fossil fuels, what are the areas in which we can contribute? And some of the challenges, the environmental challenges in places like Dubai, where facade fires are the kinds of areas that our fire protection engineering department can contribute to as we work to help build the capacity to address those global challenges, which are increasing with increasing global warming. And then beyond that, we see the Middle East as a place that has developed well-tested solutions to challenges in agriculture, in desert environments, energy, and other areas in ways that can inform other global partnerships, especially in places like Africa, where climate and culture links some of these places in ways that are interesting. And so we see these opportunities, and next, we also see this as we bring together our speakers for today's session, who really represent some of our partners in the Middle East. They include alumni and in the Middle East who have taken the WPI background to the Middle East and made impact in their communities. So we're hoping to learn from them and their experiences as we try to shape our vision and our efforts for the future. We're also excited to welcome our project partners from the United Arab Emirates and Israel into this discussion. I believe also we have some partners from Saudi Arabia that will be joining us. And we really look to building on these relationships, deeper collaborations. We have some folks from the American University of Sharjah in the UAE and the American University of the Emirates, also in the UAE, with whom we're working on to develop joint programs. We also have a project center at AUS in UAE, where we send students to work with Joe Durayan on water projects, dealing with some of the challenges of the region. And at a higher level, we have our group in systems engineering that's working with the folks at the Technion to really build even stronger and deeper interactions with the Technion in this area and in others. And of course, we have representatives from ILAT, which is our project center in Israel, where Issa Baron and Asaf will tell us later about the great work that is being done to address some of the environmental issues. So with these partners, we truly value your contributions and the collaboration. And we really look forward to this discussion and how we can build on our growing relationships in ways that can enhance our combined impact. Next, please. And so for today, next, please. We're excited by this Middle Eastern Futures event as we continue with our special culture that we've started over the past few months to really invite keynote speakers that will really help us to identify key themes as we go forward. Last year, for the last 3 months, we had Robert Langer, who's the Edison of biomedical engineering, talk to us about his work on how to build big impact that address health global challenges. Ambassador Bafo Ajebawa from Ghana talked about how policy-related work can impact development. And Nobel laureate Carlos Nobre from Brazil presented his ideas on environmental conservation and climate change and what we can do with our efforts to really help to collaborate with his efforts in the Amazon to preserve the Amazon. Today, our special keynote speaker will be Malak Al-Kili. She will talk to us about Middle Eastern futures. And she's a great example of leadership that is emerging in the Middle East that we believe will have a transformational impact. Other future keynotes will include Mele Vent, who will talk about indigenous people, and our own Holger Dressler in the Future of Work session. Next, please. But for today, it's really my pleasure to kind of present the agenda. Our host will be Joe Durayan, who's a professor here at WPI, of course, in global studies. We'll have a panel discussion with a focus on Middle Eastern futures with Majid Zambaraji, class of 90, CEO of Time Express Parcels, Abhi Singh, VP for Academics at American University of Sharjah, Naif Al-Sudari, Vice President of El-Saif, Asaf Admon, who is our partner in ILAT, and Professor Issa Baron, who's really been very instrumental in building the Israel Project Center. We're excited to see what comes out of this panel discussion and also to feature student project video on water conservation for the work in the Middle East. And we look forward at the end of this session to a keynote by Malak Al-Kili, CEO of Golden Wheat for trading and co-partner in Golden Cayenne for oil and energy, that will look at shaping the post-pandemic transformation leaders. So it's an exciting program, and we hope that you will stay and participate in all of it. And with that, I'd like to basically hand this over to Joe Durayan. who will be our host for today. Joe.
Great, thanks, Wally. And hello, everyone. As Wally has said, my name is Joe Doran. I'm a professor in the Global School. I do a lot of project work in Sub-Saharan Africa, but as is relevant to the topic at hand, I also oversee the project center in the United Arab Emirates. So it's really it's a pleasure to get to lead us through some of these different aspects of the event that we have today. I wanted to, before I introduce the panelists and we get going, I'd like to just cover sort of a few things. One is really about, the topic of this event is around Middle Eastern futures. Well, what in the world does that mean, and how did we kind of arrive at that? Wally introduced a number of perspectives and why this seems to be a pretty good framework for at least for WPI, its approach, and then also within the region. But when we were, several months ago, when we were thinking about how we might establish this event, again, thinking about, with all of this different project work that we do, with all of the problems and opportunities that exist in the region, I think what's palpable in a way that isn't in other regions of the world is, and what might be a blind spot to many people in the West, in both Europe and North America, is that the future is being created in the Middle East right now, and it's a future that is uniquely Middle Eastern. It's not replication of what we've done here in North America. It's not replication of what's happening in China. And through that expansive project of creating a future, a vision for Saudi, it's a vision of 2030. For the UAE, it's of 2071. That is the ongoing project within the Middle East, and seemed like a pretty good framework for today's dialogue. On a personal note, I think it was reflected from when I first started becoming engaged in the region, traveling to the UAE in 2012, and that the office that I was working out of and the place that I was living in Dubai didn't exist. The entire section of the city did not exist only 1 to 2 years prior to my arrival. I would go out for runs into sections of the city that were man-made islands into the Gulf. And so watching this future being created and unfold in front of me, and hearing this talk and planning of outposts on Mars, the creation of a UAE space agency, some of those same projects happening in other places throughout the region, really seemed like this moment, this moment in this theme is appropriate for the region. And then another reason that I think that it's an appropriate topic for us to kind of engage in, at this particular moment, has to do with an Arabic proverb that my wife says, which is that the wind blows against the desires of the boat. Right now, we're experiencing, we're in the midst of this global pandemic. Up until now, and particularly across the region, there have been lots of plans made. And the winds have been blowing against the desires of this particular boat. And it is interesting, and it's to hear from our panelists as well about how these visions of the future are adapting and changing against these winds. So with that said, I'd like to just quickly introduce our panelists. We have, as Wally already said, Majid Zambaraji, WPI alum from 1990, serial entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Time Express Parcels. We have Abhilasha Singh, VP for Academic Affairs at the American University of the Emirates. We have Naif Al-Sudairi, who's a WPI alum from 01. He's Vice President of Al Saif, an engineering contracting company in Saudi Arabia. We have Asaf Adman, who is a longtime friend of WPI projects and part of a long track record of doing project work with us He's the head of ILOT, as well as the ILOT Environmental Municipal Unit. And then we have Isa Baron, who is a WPI professor of engineering, founder of the Israeli Project Center, and someone that luckily I've been benefiting of many good conversations and sharing of ideas in recent weeks. So with that said, I will turn this over to Majed and let you take it from here.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. So a quick introduction. My name is Majed Zambaraji. I graduated from WPI in 1990. In the essence of time, I'm just going to jump into the small topic that I would like to talk to you about today, which is building a business in the Middle East.
Majed, there you go.
Sorry, now I think that's much better. Okay, great. Thanks for the introduction, Joe. I'll do it again. Thanks for the introduction, Joe. Lovely to be on the call. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about building a business in the Middle East. My name is Majed Zambaraji. I graduated from WPI in 1990. Feels like yesterday, but time flies by very, very quickly. So with that said, I'm just going to give you a quick brief about my experience, what I've done, and where we've gotten to in terms of the Middle East. I live in Dubai.
Oops, you're muted.
I'm getting muted automatically. I don't know why, but okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, cool. Can we move on to the next slide, because I can't control the deck from my side. Great, excellent. So I'll just call the slides as we go forward. So great to be here. What does it take to be an entrepreneur? Just 2 slides back here. Yeah, perfect, wonderful. So in essence, when you graduate from college, what you really do is you have this accumulation of knowledge which you are building every day. You actually don't really recognize it, but you essentially operate a bit like a soaking machine, which is just taking information in. And this accumulation of academic and various job roles that you do in your life creates something which is your know-how. And later on, as you evolve, you realize that your edge against everybody else is this know-how that you have, and that what makes you really different from everybody else. So what is an entrepreneur for me, and at least in the way I've evolved in my career, is really your ability to monetize on this education and the various experiences that you've done to become who you are, or to make yourself, stand up in an organization, in a corporate culture, or in the entrepreneurial world. So essentially what it boils down to is really your intellect, your belief in yourself, the knowledge that you've built through academic and various experiences in organizations. Next slide. So there is always this big topic in terms of why do entrepreneurs fail? And you hear these massive statistics of 90% of all of the entrepreneurs, if not more, actually don't end up making it. And despite the fact that it is quite difficult, but to a large extent, you prepare yourself as you get into this journey. And of course, it's a very dynamic journey. And this is a few thoughts that I've put together in terms of, from my experience, what are some of the critical criteria that graduating and getting into the workspace and later on evolving, what becomes very important for you to have in terms of skill sets. Some of these are actually easier than others. Some of them are embedded into your own DNA as a person. Others are things whether you're willing to do them or not. Knowledge is not something you can buy. It's something you gain. You get it from experience. Your ability to execute is really related to your attitude and your granularity in what you do. The elements of adaptation, again, these are personality aspects that you either want to adapt or don't want to adapt, but in a very fast moving entrepreneurial environment, you have to adapt. It's not a question of whether you want to or not. Innovation is another one that I feel very, very strongly about, because we very much live and thrive on innovation, because if you don't do things differently, then you cannot survive in an entrepreneurial world. And most importantly is your ability to sell, because in a small enterprise, you are the face of the organization. You are the one who's driving it forward, and you are the one who's actually making a difference in terms of customer impact, customer acquisition, customer maintenance. So we get into the farmer and hunter type of equation. I won't spend too much time on this slide. I could spend half an hour on it. It's something that I'm very passionate about, but feel free to ask me any questions later on. I'm more than happy to dig more into it. On the next slide, a little bit about myself. So when I graduated from WPI, I worked for GE, General Electric, and I had 11 years with GE. I won't tell you how I got the interview, because I joined GE on a Friday and I started with them on a Monday. So this is how quickly I joined them. And I was asked to actually go for my interview within half an hour. They called me at home and they said, could you come to Hammersmith in half an hour? I did my interview on a Friday at 5 o'clock in London. And I started work on the following Monday with GE, and I stayed with them for 11 years. And I worked with them with many, many businesses in aircraft engines, capital aviation out of Ireland, Wales. I did Barcelona for 4 years with GE Power. I did GE Insurance Group out of London. I did medical systems out of Paris. So I was in many, many different areas. And then I came to the Middle East in 2006. I was a CEO for a company called Agility Logistics. And then from there on, I kept evolving. I was also with UPS, managing the region, Middle East, India, Central Asia, Africa. And 5 years ago, I set up my own company. We pretty much focused on digitizing the courier industry. We have 380 people. We founded in 2016. We have 2 marketplaces that drive a lot of our business, around 20,000 customers. We've been growing at a very healthy rate, I would say, probably a normal rate, around 20% a month. And the key attributes that has made us what we are is really the element of innovation to start with, is continuously to reinvent what we're currently doing, selling on knowledge and know-how, hiring people that are really, really capable around us, at least for what we can afford, and aiming to be number one in what we're doing. Our philosophy is always to approach things in trying to find a solution for problems, continue to invest in the technology, make sure we used to have a ratio at GE called say-do ratio. So whatever we promise our customers, we make sure we do it, and always anticipate for the worst. I think these are the small take.
Oops, we lost you there for a second.
Okay, I don't know where you lost me, but hopefully I got through the last sentence on my slide. Okay, did you guys hear the last piece about anticipating the worst?
A bit of it.
Okay, so this is the summary. Again, I mean, we have our challenges. Definitely, it's not an easy journey. It's a very exciting journey, but feel free to ask me any questions. I'd be happy to tell you more.
Great, thanks, Majed.
Over to you, Joe.
Great, thanks, Majed. And so then up next we have Abhilasha Singh.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for giving this wonderful opportunity and inviting me to the WPI's Global School Virtual Event Series, interestingly focused on the future of Middle East. While I have traveled across the region and was working earlier in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah, but now for more than a decade, I'm in UAE and working in the higher ed sector. So with these words, I will focus more on UAE, but if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer that after the presentation. Can we go to the next slide? So already, I mean, I can see that Provost Wale has set the stage, and I'm sure that all of you, I was hearing from Joe, Majid also set the stage very well with entrepreneurship presentation. But I know all of you are familiar with UAE as a country. Perhaps you have heard about the skyscrapers, you have heard about the oil wealth. You may not be familiar with the very details of the country, but yes, as the images were shown earlier in the presentation, you can see that how from a very small backwater desert nation of hardly less than 300,000 people in 1971, and as Joe said that, you know, he was probably at a place which was not existing a couple of years back. So the entire nation, it turned into a very rich, vibrant economic center of more than 9 million today. So this abbreviation UAE is interesting. And when I came here from Saudi Arabia, for the first time, I noticed that this Emirates, basically, it comes from Amir, from the term Amir. And specifically, it references to the principalities that are ruled by a dynastic Islamic monarch. So there are 7 Emirates here. Each one of them, they are having, they are unique in nature. Abu Dhabi being the capital. And interestingly, most of the UAE's current residents, including me, are foreign born. So alongside other oil-rich Persian Gulf monarchies like Qatar, Kuwait, UAE is also one of a few countries in the world where the migrant workers outnumber the native-born population. So it is the second largest economy in the Arab world, right after Saudi Arabia, of course. And you will be surprised to know that only 1/3 of the GDP is from oil revenue. So UAE actually has the most diversified economy in the Arab world, and definitely it gives the best opportunity for people to, especially in Dubai, it's a favorable place to set business. And I'm sure, like Majid said, that, you know, Dubai is the best place you can set your business, and it is known as one of the gateway for entering the Europe, Middle East, and African markets. So it has untapped potential to double its export in the African countries as well. One thing which is important for UAE, which I have noticed in the past 12, 13 years in the region, it always prioritizes the education, culture, and that's why monetization drive started long back, health and family. And end of 2018, if I'm not wrong, the country published the Centennial 2071 vision. Can we go to the next slide, please? So if you look at the 2071 vision, there are 4 pillars of the UAE Centennial 2071 vision. As you can see, forward-looking government, future-oriented education, diversified and knowledge-based economy, and more cohesive society. So again, I will rather focus more on something which is future-oriented education. That's my background coming from the higher ed industry. I would like to focus more on that. So in 2016, there were a lot of reshuffle in the ministry, especially in Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. It was called Mohesar earlier, and then it was merged into Ministry of Education with 2 ministers of state in support. So there were a lot of reshuffling in the ministry, merging between ministries and government institutions. There were 3 public universities, they were merged, and there were formation of new councils and new boards. So UAE Council of Scientists was formed, including like some leading researcher and academicians here. So the UAE Centennial 2071 program aims in this access education to make the country's entire educational system the best in the world, and pushing forward the country's like cultural and economic growth so that they can enable the people to dedicate their talents and their abilities to serve the country. So the educational system here is mandated, like any other country, to focus more on the skills needed for 22nd century in the minds of students from an early stage with positive Emirati values. So the aim is more to have UAE universities to be among the best universities in the world. So that's the aim. Can we go to the next slide? So I know that it is not visible, but you can find this, the source is there. It's a UAE Annual Book where you can see that the focus is always on future-oriented, a very sustainable like lifelong learning, continuous and sustainable education. So it talks about education system, the future curricula, the ethical values and positivity, open to world's experiences. And when we say like open to world's experiences, specialized, the best in the world, reinforcing national ethics and values, continuous learning, lifelong learning. So definitely it gives, we can see that the focus is more and more on excellent and diversified system of higher education. And as the provost has mentioned earlier, it gives ample opportunity to collaborate with different parts of the world, with the higher education institutions, HEIs and HEPs in different parts of the world. So for an excellent and diversified system of higher education, we as an institution, American University in the Emirates, we also aligned with the Ministry of Education, MOE's vision to adopt the best and the latest educational methods which are there, and to ensure that education is available to everyone. And it is more student-centric. So if you come to this part of the world, you will find that the education is more student-centric, which is focusing more and more on students' strength and interest and using the best advanced science and technology. So we have noticed like there has been a complete transformation of higher education. Can we go to the next slide? And this is basically the last slide, just to give you a brief that in the past few decades, the entire educational institutions, especially here in the region, and probably I can mention even government all across the world, we have questioned the authentication of online degrees. Here also, it was not perceived as like very authentic degree, let me put this way. So, I mean, not only the ministry, because as we were not supposed to hire anyone who is having online degree. So this ministry was making it sure about it that, not to hire anyone with online degrees, but things are changing now. So in the past, there were certain questions raised in the authentication of the online degrees, online program, but in the global educational landscape, we all are aware what happened. So over the past few months, significant changes took place in the university operation, and this was due to the sudden and rapid shift towards remote and online education. And we can see all the educational institutions they were mandated to have like remote teaching and learning for a reason, because we wanted to maintain the continuity of learning. And like any other colleges and universities in the world, we were also under pressure. And while transitioning to the emergency remote teaching and learning, with the government support, we ensured very meaningful and quality learning experiences. So the entire transformation of higher education was possible through UAE's adoption of international standards and indicators in assessing the performance and competitiveness of the local and federal government institutions, which also helped in improving the performance, promoting the country's global competitiveness, and achieving the UAE's Centennial 2071 vision with the 4 pillars which were there, especially the education. So many of the e-learning platforms have been developed recently, including like in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure NIFE is there. The National Education Portal, like AIM, it become the main channel of education for more than 6 million users. And this platform, only in Saudi Arabia, it provided like 30,000 devices for those who were economically weak during this pandemic. In Tunisia, Morocco, Bahrain, also there were free access provided to the online educational platform. So a number of distance learning platforms in the Middle East came up, like EduNet in Bahrain, e-learning in Kuwait, MOE in Oman, similarly in Qatar, Ministry of Education channel, KSA, Saudi Arabia, I mentioned, Alif Education and EduShare in UAE as well. This all were there, this platform, it came during the lockdown. We noticed that these platforms were very helpful, and the institutions were implementing those. So last March 2019, UAE also aligned its national strategy on both innovation and artificial intelligence, which was like first of its kind in the region, maybe in the world. And Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, who is the Prime Minister of the UAE, he announced that a new generation of schools will be built in the UAE, which will include the labs for machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we know that in UAE, especially, there are regulatory authorities like in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, and in Qatar, as well as in Kuwait. So our regulatory authority here is Commission for Academic Accreditation. And in Abu Dhabi, it is Department of Education and Knowledge, which was earlier known as EDIC, Abu Dhabi Educational Council. They closely monitor basically all the programs in the country and how the programs are assessed. So we are not supposed to even offer any program being accredited by the Ministry of Education, by the Commission for Academic Accreditation. We cannot offer any program unless it is there is a feasibility study, there is a market research, and it's fully accredited by the Ministry of Education, the Commission for Academic Accreditation. So any delivery, even through distance learning platforms, are governed and approved by the government authorities. And we are noticing that different standards of QA, quality assurance, and institutional effectiveness are in place now to monitor them. So during this pandemic, we were also asked to develop a policy on distance learning. So we developed the policy and its implementation, and to nominate someone who will be a distance learning coordinator. So those changes, it took place. I mean, with this, I concur with Provost Wale that there are ample opportunities to collaborate on global issues and challenges, common research interest with the faculty members of different institutions, especially with WPI. And we look forward to a long-term and mutually beneficial partnership, which is already in process. Thank you. Any question, please feel free to ask. Over to Joe.
Great, thanks, Abhilasha. We'll definitely have folks listening write your questions in, and we'll get to them during the discussion section after everyone is presented. But I will definitely be taking all questions and make sure that I ask them. Up next is Naif. Naif.
Yes, hi. My name is Naif Al-Sudairi. I'm a graduate of WPI in 2001, Industrial Engineering. And I also have an MBA in Finance. I've worked in HSBC for 14 years between debt capital market, project finance, and corporate banking. I also was the CEO of Volkswagen Saudi Arabia for 3 years. And then I moved to Al-Saif Investments, and Al-Saif Investments have different investments in construction, as well as hospitals, as well as operation maintenance, and logistics, and some other small businesses, diversified businesses in the company. My role in Al-Saif is to put in a vision that summarizes or position Al-Saif to thrive with the Vision 2030 that is set by the government. We are working on the PPP segment. We're putting a lot of work in the privatization with the country. So the role of the country has moved from a proactive country to sustain their economy as well as their social and urban aspects of life. So Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia, has the general direction of the policies and the goals and the objectives of the country to position the country into a partner and not only a vendor. Saudi is considered a vendor all of these previous years. The country wants to change that idea. So to summarize the strategy of 2030, they put 3 pillars of that strategy due to the heart of Saudi being, the holy custodian of the 2 holy mosques. So they are concentrating on being the heart of the Arab and the Muslim world, and to cater for that segment, as well as becoming the investment powerhouse. As we know, the Saudi pension fund has about $160 billion, and they want to take that to $1.9 trillion in the year 2030. And then the 3rd pillar would be the hub that connects 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and Europe. And that positions the country to do business and to support logistics for all companies around the world. To explain more about the strategy, there are three major themes of the country. There is a vibrant society, which is one of the themes, and there are objectives to raise the Saudi position in the social capital index from 26 to 10. There are 3 cities that they want to be in the top 100 cities worldwide. There is the increase of the household spending and the entertainment inside Saudi. There's an increase in the capacity to welcome visitors. The country is opening up from 8 million to 30 million, and they hope to reach 100 million by 2030. And then there is the second theme, which is the thriving economy. The country wants to move away from oil exports by raising the share of non-GDP from 16 to 50%, to raise our global ranking in logistics and performance index, as well to increase the private sector contribution from 40 to 65 in the GDP, to increase the foreign direct investment to the country, to increase the public investment fund assets, to increase the women participation in the workforce from 22 to 30, as we all heard that the country is opening up for the women by driving, by thriving, by giving them tools to do SME businesses. Also the country is focusing on the SME segment they want to contribute to the GDP from 20 to 35. And the major challenge of the country is, unemployment. As we know, Saudi is about 35 million in population, 29% is under the age of 30. So it's a big challenge for the country, and they want to lower the rate of unemployment from 12% to 7%. And then the third theme is an ambitious nation. They want to raise the non-profitable sector in the GDP from 1 to 5%. They want to increase the household saving from 6 to 10%. They want to raise the ranking of the e-government, and they've done a tremendous job in the e-government in the past 2 years. They want to raise it from 36 to be among the top 5 in the world. And they want to raise our ranking in the government effectiveness index from 80 to 20%. So the objectives are quite stretched, but I think they're doing a great job so far. That's pretty much, I wanted to make it as fast, as simple as possible.
That's great. Thanks, Naif. And again, I just want to repeat, if anyone is having any, if any questions come up from the audience, please feel free to post them and we'll get to them in the discussion afterwards. Thanks. Okay, next up, we're headed to Israel with Asaf.
So, hi everyone. My name is Asaf Admon. I'm the head of the environmental unit of Eilat and Eilat region. Eilat is a small touristic city located in the south of Israel, on the top of the Red Sea. We are neighbors of Aqaba in Jordan and Taba in Egypt, and we also share a maritime border with Saudi Arabia. So it's definitely quite the center of the Middle East, and Eilat is, as I said, a small touristic city. We have 65,000 residents. Most of them are working in the tourism industry, and we are trying to promote Eilat as a smart city and a good city for its citizens and guests. The next slide, please. Okay, something went wrong with the slide, but I think it will be okay. So our vision is to be energy independent by renewable sources, 100% independent. And at the moment, we are producing 70% of our daily consumption from the sun. How are we doing that? It's we had a strategic plan, and we implemented renewable energy and solar systems, fields and on roofs. And we have ongoing projects of energy efficiency. And we are trying to introduce innovation and collaboration, international collaboration. So as I said, at the moment, 70% of our daily energy is, electricity is coming from the sun. And I will talk in my next slide about the international cooperation. And so we have installed already 200 megawatt of solar systems. And we collaborate with universities in order to learn and increase our knowledge, and all the time be in a learning procedure. So we collaborate with WPI and with other universities from Israel and from around the world. We have developed a system, a smart platform for promoting solar installations on roofs, private or non-private. And I think this can be interesting for any municipality or any company who wants to promote this. It's a one-stop shop to put up a solar system on the roof. Next slide. So as for our international collaboration, our major method in order to promote all the things I was talking about is fundraising and international cooperation. So at the moment, we have 6 European Commission projects funded by the European Commission with many partners around Europe. And we are very proud of this. And it's with a total of more than 3 million euros invested in Eilat and in innovation. So next slide. So this is really in a nutshell about our smart city projects and strategy. But I can't talk about Eilat without talking about the Red Sea and how important it is for us to take care of it. So we are, not many people know that the coral reef in the Red Sea, also in Eilat in Israel, and also in Aqaba in Jordan, and in Taba in Egypt, and also in Saudi Arabia, is predicted by the scientists to be the last coral reef to survive water warming due to climate change. And this has a long scientific explanation, which I won't get into it now, but we understand the responsibility we have to take care of this, and we are doing all sorts of things in order to make sure we are taking care of our sea. We also try and want to collaborate with our neighbors in this topic. And one of the things we are very proud of is we have just recently, in the end of 2020, had approved local law that is banning single-use plastics and dishes and nylon bags in the beaches in Eilat. And that is, I think, is a very important thing in order to do that. So that's it for now, very shortly.
Thanks, Asif. Isa. Oh, Isa, you're muted.
No, I'm not.
There you are.
Hello, I'm Isa Baron, and I'm the founder and director of the Israel Project Center. And we are located on the Project Center for most of our activities is located half an hour north of Eilat, basically in the middle of nowhere. If you remember the map that Asaf put up, we're in the middle of nowhere. And you can see in the middle of nowhere, on the right-hand side, that's kibbutz Keturah, where we are. And in the background, you see the Jordanian mountains. Actually, in all the pictures, when you see something pretty, I mean, some of the pretty aspects are the mountains of Jordan. And so, especially in the evenings. So, so why there? Two reasons, three reasons really. One is that this environment for students that come from the United States, where they're used to everything always being available, being in the desert for an extended period of time and seeing how people live and work there is a very eye-opening experience in terms of how do you function when not everything is available all the time, when you really have to consider which water to use, if you can, when Amazon doesn't deliver, and all kinds of things like that. It's eye-opening for them. So that's one advantage. The other advantage is, of course, the city of Eilat and Asaf's commitment, or Asaf's unit's commitment to environmental stewardship, which is something that WPI is also very committed to. And so we kind of speak the same language and we can work on similar projects. And the third component is that we're working with the Arava Institute. And the Arava Institute is at Keturah. It's an environmental science program and academic program affiliated with Ben-Gurion University and with Bennington College. We are working there part-time, and then we're doing because our projects are slightly, they don't fully fit into their program, so we kind of we have figured out how to work together productively, and they're helping us making it a richer experience for our students. The interesting thing also is the Arava Institute, again, just as Asaf, are very committed to sustainability, but they're also committed to building transboundary communities. So they have programs where they are reaching out to the neighbors. They have students from the neighboring countries, and they are working very hard to create dialogue between these people that are not used to talking to each other around a shared responsibility for the environment in which we are living. And the environment in the Arava region is very, very sensitive, and thus concerted efforts on sustainability are really important. And so our students get to do really cool projects. We have worked on solar cells. We have done 2 solar cell projects. This is the solar field, I think, at on the top left at Keturah. And we also do projects in agricultural technology. And so the team that you see on the bottom, this team was there a year ago before COVID hit. And they spent time fixing and updating some equipment that was being used for research. But it opened their eyes to the possibility of using their technology background to working in areas that they would never have considered. And also, it made them much more sensitive to what is required to grow things in the desert. So we have energy, we have environment, we have agriculture, and then we have been doing several projects with Asaf on helping them with their smart city initiatives in Eilat. And that's very exciting for us because on the one hand, it's not a very big city, but they have a lot of tourists. On the other hand, it's something where the students can really make a difference. And so we have all these different components that come together to making it a really interesting project center. And we are hoping that we can build on that to reach out or cooperate or learn or compare or creating a community of learners that is larger than this group in Eilat.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Isa. All right, so I'd like to open this up now to kind of discuss a few things. I mean, I was jotting down a number of notes and things. What was striking me actually is that the consistency of sort of the number of common themes that were emerging across everyone's ongoing work and everyone's talk. And the place that I'd like to start actually, and it goes into a lot of directions, and please feel free to jump in with comments and things, is that it's around the issues of innovation and entrepreneurship. And so thinking about, there are, in the case of the UAE, it's this Vision 2030, Vision 2071. For Saudi, it's 2030. Innovation and entrepreneurship is baked into the way that Israelis you're going about business, as we talked about in some of our other discussions. What do you think are some of the successful policies, programs that have been implemented in your countries, or maybe it's even just cultural or types of support systems that have built in to kind of foster the spirit of innovation in entrepreneurship? Because as you've laid out, there are goals of increased employment opportunities. It's creating new technologies to solve environmental problems. So what are some of the things that are being done in your estimation that are helping to foster this environment of exploration for innovation and entrepreneurship?
Can I mention a few things here?
Please.
Okay, so for any higher education institution, the challenge always remains on building the employability. And when we look at employability, one has to focus like where is the emphasis? Like it is on employing the students or enhancing their ability. So one thing which I really liked here, that the Ministry of Education, they mandated a course of innovation. They said innovation as a course, it has to be mandated for all undergraduate students. So across the federal institution, private institution, innovation as a course needs to be taught. Now the question comes that about empowering. Who is going to teach innovation? Innovation is not easy to teach. Probably, if I'm the vice president for academic affairs, for next time I will call Majid to teach that course, because it's so related, innovation and entrepreneurship. And that was a challenge when it was mandated by the ministry. So the support system, what MOE did, basically, they collaborated with Stanford University, and they asked the higher education institutions to nominate 2 people from each institution. And then there was a proper training of those faculty members in the country. And then many of them were nominated by the institution to go to Stanford and complete the course. So that is what I feel, that the strategy of innovation and AI, then recently it has been merged, but otherwise it was innovation strategy. And they started with the educational institution, they collaborated with the Stanford University. The capacity building exercise was done completely. so that the students can become the course is delivered for the students to become more agile, more like agility and resilience. These are the two major things I think, like we all are focusing on lifelong learners, resilience, agility. So that part it is started by the vision of the country, and then gradually through this process it was developed.
Joseph, if you allow me, part of the vision is for Saudi Arabia, they are creating a number of cities. Some of these cities are constructed around innovation, and that city is called NEOM, and the whole city is about 170 kilometers on the Red Sea, and the city is all powered with renewable energy, and they want to have factories of robotics and also similar to the Silicon Valley in the US. They want to promote tech companies, and they've created free zones, and they've created funds and loans to support businesses in that region. So Saudi has a whole objective of innovation. There's a whole chapters and goals around that, discussion that you just mentioned. But NEOM is going to tackle all of the innovation within the country. And there is another city which is called Qiddiya, and Qiddiya is also an entertainment city that has also innovation into it, embedded into the vision.
So part of the plan is to, almost like a company might create a separate innovation unit outside of its current sort of structure and systems, and then incorporate it back in. In many ways, these cities are allowing for the creation of sort of specific environments oriented towards I&E that could then be later brought into, lessons learned, things like that, brought in and shared more broadly. Is that sort of the thinking?
Yeah, I mean, innovation in general, it's tackled in the vision. If you look at the agriculture part, they're into the hydroponics, innovative ways to preserve the water in the country and in the environment. If you look at NEOM, it tackles more about the international requirements of solar panels, manufacturing of solar panels. The whole city is going to be run in a non-oil goal. The whole city will be, the public transportation will be electric. You've seen the wind panels for the first time. The manufacturing of the wind panels in that city, and the whole city is going to attract companies, worldwide companies who want to have economic sense to deliver their innovative and environmental friendly products to Europe in a cheaper methodology. We've seen a lot of the Chinese coming to this city to hide away from the tariffs, but and they see all of these financial powerhouse support and innovative ways to start that city. So it is a city that is marketed and supported by the government because they want to deliver something to the world by becoming environmental friendly and innovative as much as they can.
Majed, as an entrepreneur yourself, operating in this environment, also with insight, having lived and worked in the United States, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? Did we lose Majed? I think we might have lost him, but that's all right. So and actually, so it kind of brings me in hearing about this and.
Sorry, Joe.
Oh,
Fine.
you're here. Okay. Yep. There you are. Go ahead, Majed. That's all right. I think there's a problem with the connection. So with regard to I&E, I mean, one of the things that was brought up both in what Naif said as well as Abalasha, and I think it's relevant to the work that you're doing in Israel to talk about the Israeli startup scene. I mean, that's something that has been long in development, and it's a thriving incubator of important startups and various new technologies, and it just brings to light, I think, some of those issues around creating the context for entrepreneurship, innovation, but also for solving some of these environmental challenges. I know, Issa, that some of the project work that students have been doing have been with Israeli startups and things to that nature. Is there anything you have to say, in that regard?
So yeah, here is innovation and entrepreneurship are almost endemic, and so it's there's a lot. I mean, anybody that studies this, there are discussions. What is it? Is it government programs, or is it the culture, or is it the context, or is it people that grow up being questioning authority from age 0? And the answer is probably all of the above. The fact is, and the fact that Israelis can't follow any rules, and so they have to do it differently. But that I don't think that's narrow. That might be Middle Eastern. That might not only be Israeli. And so there are. In the end, it's people. In the end, it is people that are willing to work, are willing to invest, are willing to, and the resources to do it. And so I think it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of drive. And for our students, they get to work in this environment and they participate, and it's very exciting for them. So they bring their basic education, but then in terms of training them, projects are probably the best way to do it, right? Because they actually do. They don't listen to a course, they don't do a seminar, they don't have to read or write, they're just doing it. They're taking what they have learned, they're given an assignment. By the end of the week, they have to present something and it gets pulled apart, and then they have to sit down and fix it, or and so on and so on. And so they learn by doing.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to look into the chat here, and actually this, I think, is a starting point with Issa and Asaf, but also Abalash, Naif, and others, is that Professor Hal Walker has written that a number of faculty and students at WPI are interested in water, and he'd be interested in hearing from the panelists about your thoughts on some of the ways in which that WPI might be able to work with folks across the region on these issues. In fact, we're going to hear from a student team from that was at American University of Sharjah last year and completed a work with SIWA, the Sharjah Energy and Water Authority.
Yeah.
So it's something that we have been focusing on and have interest in, and we're just curious to hear some of the thoughts from all of you on the ways in which WPI might be able to be involved.
See, I mean, unfortunately, as an institution, we are not into that research. But I can actually guide and give some suggestion. So I think in UAE, which is in Al Ain, it's a public institution, public university, United Arab Emirates University. They are, if I'm not wrong, they are into water. So feel free to write to me. I can connect you to someone there. They do a lot of research in water. I think there was a national water center. There was a plan to develop that. Another institute which was which was very much into researchers into water conservation and other issues related to water was Masdar. Now Masdar has been merged with like Masdar, Petroleum and Khalifa University. These were the three different public universities. Now they have been merged into one, and it's Khalifa University. So if you can get in touch with someone in Khalifa University, again, it's a public university, and they are also into a lot of researchers related to water. So I mean, I can just give you this information that try to get in touch with someone in Khalifa University and UAEU, which is United Arab Emirates University. And if you're not able to do so, please, through Joseph or through anyone, through Rachel, just write to me. I will try to connect you with someone. That's what I can do.
Great. Other thoughts?
I would love to add, first of all, it's a good question because this is something I wanted to say and forgot. Eilat is reusing 100% of the wastewater, high quality treated for agriculture, mostly for dates. And this project was set maybe 20 years ago and is very, very successful. And it's something we are always open for people to come and learn. And also, we have, I think Israel is quite known for its water technology and agriculture with very low amounts of water. And definitely, we're happy to share. And also, I think students can be ambassadors from this point and can come and learn and take it to other places. Of course, there's a long way to go still, but that's one point. The second thing, I think, in the whole of the Middle East, we are moving from maybe our old culture to new cities, and this change is also has a lot of a high price of water consumption, and I think we should try and target this by technology and try and still aim to the same quality of life, but by using less water. I think this is something we can do, and definitely Academy is a good partner to do this.
Isa, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could plan on having projects that work in more than one location in the Middle East on similar issues, and kind of get a larger understanding of what the situation is, or what the problems are, what the approaches are. It depends. It would take some sitting down with people who are interested in defining these things. And it depends, of course, on interest of the people that are in the different project centers. But I think this is something where we could maybe, create some common interest and some more excitement around bigger impact.
Yeah, water seems to be one of those topics too, right? That transcends boundaries and in the region. It's a common problem across political boundaries.
Right.
Knife, do you have any thoughts on that?
Water was one of the first topics for the transboundary work in the area. And so there are people that claim that the peace accords with Jordan came about from joint work on water problems. So in general, sorry.
Oh. Well, Isa grabs a glass of water. Knife, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, water is a big challenge in the Middle East, especially in the GCC. Saudi has been about pioneers on the water desalination and using the seawater for agriculture requirements. But I think, like the panelists have mentioned, we need a lot of education around it and educating the people not to waste water, and new ways to use the water in a much beneficial to the environment as possible. But yeah, there is a huge gap that WPI could do with their partners in the GCC to find innovative ways to minimize the usage of water.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much to Hal Walker for bringing that up. So there's another question here from Karen Bean, and Knife, you answered part of it in there, but I just wanted to give an opportunity for you to speak to it, maybe extend it to Abhilasha and others. Is that what are your thoughts on how education will need to adjust to accommodate future workforce needs? And Karen's specifically asking in the context of Saudi, but this applies across the region as these economies are transformed and trying to foster this environment of innovation and entrepreneurship. So, what are your thoughts, Knife?
Yeah, I think previously education concentrated on engineers, finance people in Saudi. I think with the Vision 2030, there's a lot of uncatered education channels that has been neglected over the years. And in the Vision 2030, there is a whole chapter of educational programs to fit requirements for the country moving forward. And that is, if it comes to tourism, languages, infrastructure engineers like civil and so on. But I mean, there is a whole chapter that discusses education, and part of it is, gearing up the local and private segment, universities and, high schools to adapt to the requirements within the country. And I think the country is putting a lot of efforts to improve the educational programs within the country. I think a lot of the programs, and you've seen a lot of students coming to the US, going to Europe, sponsored by the government. And this is something that now the government is thinking to not only continue that, but also to have, state-of-the-art universities and professors coming to the country. We've seen one that King Abdullah University in the Red Sea, and it focuses in biology and sea biology, and concentrated on like some of the panelists said, on the reefs. This is something that is required. This is something that is unheard of 10, 15 years in Saudi. People, going into the sea life education and the biological life in the Red Sea. We always see that in the West, but I think the country is adapting to the requirements of the environment and the requirement, adapting to the requirement in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's interesting. Abhilasha? Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, this is a buzzword these days. You are muted. I agree with what Naif has mentioned. Actually, in the region, there are universities, and I just gave the name of like Khalifa University and UAU. They are the leading universities in UAE, especially. Just to give you a brief, like even if we see only Dubai is is becoming a regional educational hub. You know, there are more than 77 or 80 universities only in Dubai. And there are lots of initiatives the government is taking, like giving them gold visa. If the students are outstanding students, they give them gold visa. If their CGPA is about 3.8, they give them 5 years visa. The students can even, there was a recent regulation that the students can even sponsor their families, provided they can afford it. If I have to give you the percentage of the overall literacy rate of UAE, I think it is above 90%. So, which is also very good. And especially being women, the country is breaking all stereotypes, basically. The literacy rate of women in UAE is above 95%. Emirati women are more enrolling in the higher education. That has also been noticed. I mean, I'm personally noticing that a lot. And the focus is more on STEM education. Now, the country was not earlier focusing on STEM education. And it was just 2-3 weeks back, I was giving a presentation on women and artificial intelligence. And while making this presentation, I started doing a lot of research, and I found that women are way behind when it comes to artificial intelligence. And maybe because engineering and science and maths and these subjects are more dominated by men. I mean, if you see the dropout rate is quite high. I mean, the same figures are there in US as well. So, but I can see now that although only 46% of the university graduates are into STEM education, but the country is now like focusing more and more on STEM education. So besides providing a very sustainable, like lifelong learning, they believe, and very sustainable and continuous education, there is a budget of more than 10 billion which is given to the higher education, which is dedicated for the higher education system. And the focus is again to make it more compatible with the requirement of the future by having those by inculcating those skills which are required. Looking at the World Economic Forum reports which are coming, what are the future skills required? So we are personally, I'm noticing that a lot in UAE and of course in the region as well. Whether I have to talk about like Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, all the GCC countries, I can see that there is a clear budget which is given to for education. They're focusing a lot on what skills are required for the future, breaking all kind of stereotypes. I mean, I can give you a lot of, like, especially in UAE, having a Ministry of Happiness, Ministry of Tolerance, Ministry of Possibilities, and young women like 22 years old being in the cabinet. You know, it's something which probably the world is noticing. So I'm sure that there is a transformation happening, and more and more innovation and more focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning is being witnessed here.
I want to change gears. Thank you. I want to change gears slightly and go back to some of the themes that came up across all of your talks. And one of them was around tourism. And it was addressed in a number of different ways. We talked about it in terms of potential for economic development. We talked about it in terms of sustainability and the attention that it brings to the environment and protecting the environment and things to those nature, that nature. And so Asaf, I kind of like to turn it over to you right now to kind of hear some of your thoughts around, the work, your ongoing work in this area, how you all think about it, and et cetera.
So first of all, I have to say that COVID has had a very big impact on tourism in Eilat, I guess, like other tourist cities around the world. And we are really in a real crisis in this point of view. And it's a good opportunity to try and think of things differently. And we had just a month ago, Eilat was defined by the government like a green island for a COVID point of view. And it was allowed to come here only after a COVID test, a negative test, and people could come for holidays. Now we are back to lockdown, so at the moment it's not working, but I hope it will work again after this lockdown. And definitely we are looking at our tourism industry and thinking how we can make it more environmental friendly, and work it up to ecotourism environment. It's challenging. It's challenging indeed, because it's an industry and its economy behind it, and I think it will be even more challenging in the next coming maybe couple of years until we get out of this. But I think we understand. We, is our leaders, the hotel owners, the public, the children, the schools. We understand we have to make a change. Otherwise, we won't have a bay left. We won't have the coral reef. We won't have open areas. We won't have nature. So I believe we can make this change. It just takes time.
So it's sort of reminiscent of, so I do work in Namibia as well. And one of the projects that we were planned to do, it was interrupted due to the pandemic, actually. And part of it was the way that the project was scoped and framed was that tourists ended up not being aware of the local conditions. And so when they would arrive at hotels, they would be the biggest consumers of water, of other types of producers of other types of waste. And so it was a sort of this, they wanted to look at like this intervention on how to make some of those aspects of tourism without losing the economic impact of this double-edged sword of trying to use tourists to that are traveling to appreciate natural beauty and culture and all of those things without further diminishing and having a harmful impact on the economy. So with that said, actually, Naif, I know that tourism is something that was, that you brought up, in your own talk. So how does this, sort of factor into the plans and to the Saudi context?
Saudi has been closed to foreigners for a while, unless if someone is working in Saudi or doing business in Saudi. But otherwise, it was limited visas was given to whoever applied for it. I mean, Saudi has put the tourism as a focal point of the vision, and I think if you've seen, Saudi have done a tremendous good job. And the UNESCO, now we have 5 UNESCO heritage sites that's been approved, and we've seen a number of the cities that they've announced that focuses on tourism. And we've seen the G20 being hosted in Saudi for the first time in history, as well as we've seen a lot of sporting events, concerts, influencers, Hollywood, actors coming and, videoing some of their experiences in Saudi. So, I mean, Saudi is taking tourism to the next level and adapting to, the competition in the region, knowing that Egypt, has the pyramids, Dubai has the new city, messages, but Saudi has to define itself in a different way. And we've seen Qatar, trying to get the World Cup, and they got it. And now Qatar, everyone speaks of Qatar. No one knew Qatar before that. So Saudi is adapting to the new hype of marketing and getting these events to market for the country. And with the new cities, we've seen Saudi has the islands that we see in the Maldives or in the Bahamas. We've seen Saudi has the mountains that we see in Europe. We've seen we have the deserts. We have we have a lot of things that are not tapped to the rest of the world, and this is what Saudi wants, to have people to come and learn the culture and learn, the uniqueness of the environment and how to make business through tourism. So, I think I am very motivated to see people coming and learning about our culture and the beauty of the land.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I'm looking at the clock, and I just want to kind of pose this general question to the panel. You know, is there anything that I didn't point to that you brought up in your presentations, or things that came to mind while other people were talking that you really wish that I'd asked, or that I'd you know, introduced into the discussion? You know, is there anything in thinking about the topics and themes that we've sort of covered? Is there anything here that that you know, has come to mind that we should have talked about that we didn't? Well, thank you very much. I think before we close, what I would just like to say is actually to my WPI colleagues that are listening, is that, you know, please reach out if any of this has struck a nerve with you. You know, part of our goal is to really increase the engagement in the region, developing, you know, projects in the places that we already are, but expanding to address issues together, really, in places that we're not currently operating. And as you can see, everything from focusing on you know, innovation and entrepreneurship, specifically education, water, energy, all these different things that we've discussed. Just please reach out to me if you have ideas, or, you know, for projects and things, or you'd like to make connections with any of the folks here. So,
Joe,
sure,
do you mind a message to my WPI, you know, students?
please.
You know, I really was, you know, fortunate to go to WPI through the IQP and the MQP programs, because it's one of the few universities that, you know, connects what is, you know, required in the working field versus what is being, you know, discussed in classrooms. And I think this is a transformation for leaders in the future in the engineering, you know, field. And this had added a lot to my experience, and the reason why I've been successful in business is because of these programs that has added a lot to my capabilities. So my message to WPI, please continue with the programs. It's amazing, and I wish all the best for the students.
Great, thanks, Naif. Great, thank you, everyone. Thanks to all the panelists, and you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. It was lovely talking, and it was good to listen to others as well and to learn different perspective. And please, you can share my contact details to any of your WPI colleagues or anyone who is listening today. And I will be happy to address any questions if I can, to the best of my ability. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asaf. Thank you, Isa. Okay, great. Rachel. Let's just continue here, and then maybe we'll pause for a little bit between the students and our keynote with Malik. So let me just give a few words here. So what you're about to watch is a presentation that was pre-recorded by an outstanding IQP student team. For those of you who are not familiar with IQPs, it's one of the you know, big projects, so to speak, that WPI students need to complete in order to graduate. It's interdisciplinary in nature. In this case, they elected to come with me to the UAE and work at the American University of Sharjah on projects that were related to the Sharjah Electricity and Water Authority. What you're about to see is the sort of the you know, them explain in their own words their experience, but also their project work, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, we are a group of students at WPI that completed our interactive qualifying project, IQP, in the fall of 2019. Our project regards water conservation campaigns in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. The project was sponsored by the Sharjah Electricity and Water Authority, SEWA, a government utility that provides electricity, water, and natural gas to the residents of Sharjah. We also worked with 2 students at the American University of Sharjah. Now to introduce the team. I'm Pooja Patel, a computer science major in the class of 2021.
I am Omar Al-Ghani, a chemical engineer in class of 2021.
I'm Kyla Eggenberger, biomedical engineering major in the class of 2021.
Rafael Pimentel, I'm a computer science major, class of 2021.
To give structure to our presentation, we'll be discussing the project we conducted in the UAE and our experience being there. We'll first discuss the situation, then give relevant background and introduce our methods. From there, we'll discuss our findings, our experience being in the UAE, and present our final thoughts. To set the stage, the issue of water conservation has been growing in importance in recent decades. As a result, our project sponsor, SEWA, has run numerous education campaigns to promote awareness on conservation. Our team was tasked to understand these types of campaigns, design our own, and then test these campaigns with the Sharjah public. Moving on, now I'll discuss relevant background for our project. The UAE has an arid climate which induces water stress, and water stress occurs when the combination of increasing water consumption is met with limited water resources. In the UAE, some factors contributing to this stress state are an increasing population, the rising temperatures, and limited rainfall.
Now that we covered the relevant background information, we can discuss our methods. We divided our methods into 3 key phases. We have the exploration phase, the design phase, and the feedback phase. First, we're going to discuss the first phase, which is the exploration phase. This phase focused on the educational campaigns that were already implemented in Sharjah through an observational study and interviews with both AUS and SEWA. This started out just by looking at different flyers on bulletin boards on the AUS campus, where we stumbled across a sign office. We then reached out to that office and we were able to set up an interview. We also were able to interview officials, and by the end of this, we had collected data on over 70 campaigns. Once we had pictures of each campaign, like the one on the right, we were able to categorize each one based on the 2 marketing frameworks you see on the screen. So we used a software called NVivo, where we were able to annotate the campaigns by the type of audience, product, action, investment, etc. And by the end, we had a web of different campaigns connected by the similar characteristics so that we could analyze this after.
Now we have phase 2, design. The goal of this phase was to generate creative ideas for water conservation campaigns to create lives. For this, we created a sprint workshop that consisted of 6 stages: understand, define, diverge, decide, prototype, and validate. The first step was recruitment and planning. First, we recruited locals to Sharjah to register for the design sprint. We reached out to our AUS partners to know what department to go to for this. Then we marketed the workshop through flyers on campus, as the one that you can see on the right. And then on the left picture, you can see our pilot test that we conducted with our WPI partners. The first stage of our workshop was understand. In this part, we would explain to all the attendants that the problem that we were trying to solve. For stage 2, which was define, the groups, we would split into groups and they would try to narrow down the problem or what was causing it. For stage 3, that was diverge, everybody individually would start brainstorming ideas for 5 to 10 minutes on how to solve this problem. For stage 4, decide, the group would come back together and start deciding on which idea to work on. For stage 5, which was prototype, should take that idea that they chose and create a tangible version of that idea. Then for stage 6, validate, they would present the idea to all the other groups, and then all the groups would vote on which one was the best idea.
The third phase is the feedback phase. The goal of this phase is to present 3 different types of campaigns and feedback regarding the content. This was done by interviewing CEWA representatives and surveying Sharjah residents. The survey included students from the US campus and the Sharjah resident from an event in a local park. There were some language barriers between some of the team members and some of the Sharjah community, which created some awkwardness when trying to speak with them. I tried as a member coming from the Middle East to facilitate and bridge some of these language barriers and to fill in any cultural gaps that they might have. Even when we needed to approval to do the survey and convince the organizer to get us an approval to do the survey, and thankfully they agreed. The first campaign that was presented was an informative online post, which had tips and information regarding conserving water. The second campaign was an application that tracked water consumption in the resident household. The third campaign was the idea of an event with different activities that targeted all the age groups aiming to conserve water. We had a number of findings for each phase. One of the findings we found in the exploration phase was the different target audiences need different delivery methods. For the second phase, the design phase, we also had different findings. For example, the design sprint workshop produced around 9 campaign prototypes, and from these prototypes, different themes regarding content, delivery, incentives, and messaging emerged. Lastly, the feedback phase showed that social media and app campaigns were the most favorable by the participants.
Now we're going to speak about our experiences in the UAE. At the close of our time in the UAE, we had the opportunity to present our work. One of the presentations was at the American University of Sharjah, where we were able to present our project work to WPI representatives, AUS faculty, and CEWA representatives. The second presentation opportunity was at the Ritz-Carlton for a WPI reception in Dubai, where we were able to present our poster to WPI alumni, CEWA representatives, as well as other guests.
From the first day that we came to the US, the International Exchange Office were the first people to welcome us. Moreover, they got us engaged and experienced the culture by facilitating trips around the UAE. We went to Abu Dhabi and visited the Louvre Museum and the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque on our first week. They also organized a trip to the Global Village in Dubai, and they got us involved in a documentary TV program that made us go to a local sport club that had a shooting range and try it, and then later made us try some of the local traditional food.
Another one of the opportunities that we experienced was a traditional Arabic dinner in a desert safari. We did things such as sand skiing, dune bashing, and camel riding. In Dubai, some things we did was visited the Burj Khalifa and the various malls around the city. We did some ecotourism, and we also traveled the beaches and about all the beaches around Dubai.
Growing closer as a group was incredibly important to help us avoid homesickness, especially when some of us never even left the country before. In the picture on the right, both project teams and our advisor enjoyed a game of Uno on a Thanksgiving holiday away from home. And on another day, we were able to visit Kite Beach on a whim, and we even got to stay in a 5-star hotel. Overall, our experience in the UAE was filled with adventures, new friendships, and learning opportunities. There was never a boring moment, but still we did experience some difficulties, especially being the first group to come to the UAE from WPI, especially since there was no older students to help us out and give us any advice. We were learning everything day by day. Also, we arrived in a heat wave after being in the New England fall weather, so that took some time to adjust as well. And being in a new cultural climate came with shock at first, especially with new dorm rules like curfew, which we never experienced at WPI, or with not being able to understand another language. But through it all, we were able to adjust within the first week and then fully immerse in the culture and have an awesome experience.
For me, the project work we did in the UAE was an incredible learning opportunity, and I look back at our experiences there so positively.
For me, this project remains one of the most amazing experiences I have ever had. I think I would love to go back again someday for work or just for fun.
My first time leaving the US was one I will never forget. I met so many awesome people that I still talk to today, and I love looking back on the old pictures.
This was a good experience for me, especially working with people from different backgrounds on one huge project. Thank you for listening.
Great. Yeah, a big thank you to the IQP team. As I said, they were outstanding. The work that they produced and just being incredible to to advise on the ground in the UAE. One thing that I should say is that this past fall we did remote projects with 5 different teams, and again the work they produced was outstanding. We worked with SIWA again, as well as some other local organizations, and the work that they did again was important and extremely well done. So with that said, one plug. So if you're a student looking to do your MQP, there are opportunities to do that at the American University of Sharjah next year. You should reach out to Professor John Bergendahl and contact him about those project opportunities. So with that said, I'd like us to just pause for a quick 5-minute break. It's mostly selfish. Just going to grab a glass of water, and then we're going to get started with our keynote speaker, Malik Al-Akili. Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for not running away and being here for our final keynote speaker. I'd like to present Malik Al-Alkili. Malik is a serial entrepreneur from Jordan. She's Jordan-based. She is the founder and managing director of Golden Wheat for Grain Trading. An industry that is particularly male dominated in a region that's dominated by male entrepreneurs. She's also the co-founder of Golden Cayenne for Oil and Energy, a board member of the Jordan Economic Forum, as well as a co-founder. She was a young global leader with the World Economic Forum, among number of other accolades. She has done projects ranging from teaching, entrepreneurship to women called Women Bee Buzzers, which enabled rural Jordanian women to earn income and gain new skills, as well as a number of other initiatives. But we'll cover a lot of that in our discussion afterwards. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Malik. Malik.
Hi, everyone. Good morning to all. First of all, I want to congratulate and celebrate with you the WPI launch of the Global School in the Middle East, with the vital role that WPI has in shaping the Middle East future for preparing leaders and pioneers in the STEM fields and projecting a hands-on learning experience and real-life challenges education. In the Middle East, we are in a desperate need for hope and optimism. So it's an enormous honor to join you in such an event and speak from my home country, Jordan. To those striving to make this positive impact in the world. And I'm super excited to see the momentum in action as a female businesswoman in the MENA region. Even now, I'm more excited actually after the panel discussions and the projects that the students have presented from the WPI. So I'll start with Her Majesty Queen Rani of Jordan that has emphasized always that education is the best kind of immunity we can give our youth to face the challenges around them. Having said that, 28% of our population in the Middle East are young people. So it has been always education, and your mastery in WPI must be in full enforcement. It's okay if you are still navigating your authentic leadership and priorities until now, since leadership, in my opinion, it's a daily practice and really happens when you find yourself in a crossroad or situation or a challenge that you have to stand up for a cause. That's why your authentic leadership with a quality education has never been needed like now. And in the heat of the pandemic, we all should be definitely having our post-pandemic mindset focus on reorienting and redesigning our priorities and redefining our personal brand. So the state of mind that it should be that we have to be agile, we have to be more resilient. Yet here comes the fundamental question: how to reset in this new digital age and redefine ourselves in a regional post-pandemic leadership agenda. So I just put some steps. I think that it's very, very much important. The first step is every step along the way, people like seeking and looking for leadership, role models, example, visionary people who enforce policies and give such examples, and integrity, and also integrity. And so you can embrace and exercise and show all of that through finding the platform and space to experience that. And that's why, for example, the WPI is there. We're always in such a need of what any educational institution is providing. And on a personal level, I want to share with you my own SST concept, which is essentially surviving, sustaining, and thriving. So the concept should be applied on both personal and professional level. I apply it myself. So last year, for example, was definitely a difficult year. It has been our own choice to act now and have a defining role for redesigning and reorienting all our resources for the very best of our health and well-being and prosperity, which is essentially what you are expecting to have at WPI. It's a lifetime experience that puts you on the right and first steps of your extraordinary leadership journey. So how is that? I will share with you the steps to do so, of applying the SSC concept on a both personal and professional level. Let me start with the personal level in applying the SSC concept. The first step is to identify yourself. Who are you? What's your personal brand, your personal code? What's the first thing do you think people will describe or relate to you? It's an excellent exercise. So personally, during the lockdown last March here in Jordan, I was reflecting on all my life, and I found out proudly that I'm really content with where I am now, and I need to continue this commitment to my journey of self-growth. I started with removing toxic people and distractions from my life, counting my daily blessings and focusing on what's essential in life, and that's surviving, because basically you start by embracing the state of your existence and coexisting with your body, mind, and soul from one side, and also with other human beings from another side, which is, I mean, the core, you're finding your core and also identifying why you are here in this universe. The second step is actually sustaining, which is strengthening your mental and physical health, and take care of your own precious self. And the third step is thriving. It is your moment to shine and prosper. And you will prosper by also growing 3 circles, which I name them the circle of knowledge, the circle of confidence and trust, and the circle of friends and family. So now, after fulfilling the SSC concept, you will be ready for the professional level. And again, it is our own choice for reorienting all our resources for the sustainability of our livelihood in the region. And I really want to emphasize on the importance of our sustainability, of our livelihood in the region. The main lesson learned during this pandemic is the power of technology in connecting people under extreme circumstances. Hence, COVID-19 definitely pushed technology adaptation, even in the region, with every day of our lives. Individuals, companies that were reluctant to adapt technological solutions are now more open to learning new skills and utilizing new technologies, investing in technology integration, and especially having more appreciation for STEM fields, as well as creating the data-driven societies we want. And believe me, this shift to data-based decision will enable us to find better answers to our persistent problems in the MENA region. By first, we will understand the roots of the problem and how they correlate. And consequently, this understanding will allow us to explore or identify solutions that we've never been able to see without this access to big data. Nevertheless, to do so, we need to rearrange our life strategies again towards investing more in ourselves and also in the technological literacy. And after all of us have witnessed the implications of 2020, deep technology integration is further ingrained in almost every industry, and the emergence of new technologies will impact and will become our new reality, and power will be in the hands of who owns the data. So we as a society should aim to empower the new generation, defining their own roles and the way to live it. So for example, if we aim to empower women in the STEM field, then as a society, we must educate young girls to define and position themselves as women in tech. So we could turn the gender roles around and be on top of it. So if we embodied that culture and from an early age and give more hope for women who have been hit hard by conflict or still live on war zones and refugee camps or even in closed-minded communities, we just give them the opportunities to do so. it's vital for us to believe that no economic progress without the progress of humans and truly investing in them. And WPI as a platform, as an institute, it's the platform to do so. That's why I implore you to explore and embrace such experience. And that's what WPI does. They invest in you, the transformational leaders, and they invest in the future. At the launch, I cannot wait to see the students of Visionary Youth creating an actionable path, actually, where all the minds in the region, they come together and harness the power of knowledge. And they realize that our true asset is the institutional knowledge and leading the trends of sustainability to solve the global urgent challenges and creating the global harmony. And you'd never know, maybe the next tech unicorn in the coming decade, or the one will create the vaccines for infectious diseases, will be from the Arab world. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Malik. Malik, you said so many things that are instantly quotable. So I was scrambling to jot down notes to make sure that I had them. But you said we must educate girls to position themselves to essentially as belonging in tech if we want them to thrive in tech. And it made me immediately think of an image, which is if you go to the Jordanian Economic Forum, that you co-founded and are on the board of directors, if you look at the pictures, you're the only female face in the entire board. So what was it about your own education that positioned you to think and believe that you belonged in that room?
I think it's not about the male-female thing here. It's about the knowledge and the added value you are providing. So when we co-founded the forum, we just wanted a pressure group and a think tank that consists of the best minds in Jordan to work on economic and actually assist the government. Assist the government with having this economic policies and reforms in place. So I think I was just, I wouldn't say by coincidence, I would just say that I was, selected to join the board, and I'm continue to contribute and learn in return for the best of my country and also the region, because it's about economic progress for our country.
Yeah. So let's sort of, stepping back and thinking about you as, you have a number of different roles. I think one of the consistent ones has been that of, entrepreneur. And could you talk us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journeys? And especially, I think of interest is specifically in the Middle East, in Jordan. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
I'll share. I mean, it's recorded, but I'll tell some stories. I don't mind. But the thing, Joe, is I would call it. You must have the entrepreneurial attitude, which means that you will be in certain situations that you need to act fast. So, for example, we had an opportunity in Nigeria. So one of the stories I had is actually I went to I had an opportunity. I had a meeting, with the ambassador, and then I had some time before the specific time to see him. So I had time to just free time. So I went actually to know the location of the embassy. So what I did is actually I saw the security guy standing outside. So I just stopped the car and I talked to him for 3 hours. And I get all the information I want actually from the security guy who happens to be from Nigeria. And actually he helped me so much, and he actually connected me. He provided me, after 3 hours of talking to him, of course I missed the appointment with the Nigerian ambassador, as you of course can imagine. And the guy, he gave me very valuable information about a country I've never been, I've never heard of. And at the end of our meeting, if you want to call it a meeting, I think I was lucky to meet him. He gave me a number, and this number, he actually happens to the connection to one of the, influential governmental men in Nigeria. I didn't know that. It means that you just should be open to explore opportunities. It says you have to act now, and opportunities will come to your door. I never thought that I will reach to these people, and we invested in some aviation and oil projects in Nigeria. We failed miserably, but it was a rich experience in terms of learning, and it's always about entrepreneurial attitude. Is like, how do you always take the failure as a life lesson and learn how to talk to people and really see, just be open and just be an active listener, because everyone has something to say and contribute. And I started at an early age. I started taking risks. I established my own company, and then I joined, and then I had a partner. Then I went again. I started all over again, and now I am on my own since 6 years. And after 3 years, I tapped on a new experience, which is educating myself about oil and energy. So I think you just be, to have to be committed and focused, and also take everything. Entrepreneurship, I think it's an exercise. It's a way of thinking. And I think I'm so lucky, made myself, this being lucky. I mean, I really worked hard to reach where I am now.
Yeah, so that really will resonate with a number of my colleagues. We have an initiative at WPI around entrepreneurial mindset training. We tried to integrate the very values and orientations that you described, that openness, spirit of exploration, seizing opportunity, all of those things. And I kept thinking about, and I know that I'm butchering the quote, but it's that, being an entrepreneur means like facing repeated failure with optimism when you probably shouldn't be optimistic, but
you have to, I think, Joe, you have to see always that there is a reason, and you have to get anything you face, you have to get a lesson out of it, because if you didn't get the lesson, then it's the real failure. I don't believe in failure, honestly, but the real failure if you really didn't get the lesson out of this experience. And I call it always life lesson. I really I reject calling it failure at all. I mentor a lot of young entrepreneurs and also professional ladies. And I always tell them that never call it a failure. It's never a failure. The real failure is when you don't take the lesson, and you need to write down this lesson and keep reminding yourself. And the other thing is, like, also by taking risks, sometimes you don't, I told my family 1 month after I established the company, and it's so funny. I was like, they were discussing what shall I do, and after I sold my share with the previous company, and then I told them, like, after discussing my personal life, I was like, okay, are you done? I just want to let you know that I have now my own company. So I think it's just, always, you have to take risk. It's of course calculated risk. We're talking about calculated risk. And you have this precious time, just also enjoy and take care of yourself, because it's always about the entrepreneurial spirit and mindset and attitude, also about taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. So one thing that I think about when hearing you say all of that, and then knowing your background and knowing that you spent time in the United States, traveling the US, seeing firsthand different industries and entrepreneurial approaches, and then returning to Jordan as well. I mean, as well as elsewhere. I know that you've been all around. So, sort of reflecting on those decisions that, you talked about taking risks, risk assessment, all of those different things. Is there anything, in terms of lessons learned in the US that you brought back to the Jordanian context, things in the Jordanian context that if you reflected on would be important for, the US?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was lucky and fortunate to join many times the U.S. Department of State on educational exchange programs, and just to learn how the practice of the entrepreneurship, many initiatives, and it's truly amazing. You know, we have the same concerns, the same challenges. I mean, it's the way you do it in terms of structure and the way you implement things. So I think we have to focus on how to implement and how to make it in full enforcement. And I've learned a lot. The exchange, it gives you such an exchange, it gives you exposure. And I think you have the exposure, so you look into the 360 view, which is very important. So you know, you think always, they say, yeah, you have to think global and act local. Maybe it's the opposite, but it's just yeah, exactly. So and it's, you know, and it's easy because, you know, it's easy, Joe, when you are grounded in your own identity. So you have the core, you have the principle, you know, the culture, you know, the constraint, but still you can learn what can be applicable. And it is, we can identify what all of us we are witnessing and experiencing. So the US, it was, and you know, the US Jordan relationship was an excellent relationship. So I was lucky to be in many programs, entrepreneurship. It was one of the programs. This was women fostering economic stability. So that was one of the best programs I've ever attended. So this, and I'm trying to apply this in what I do, and also to benefit my country, to bring also stories, because what we need is more to spread more success stories. I mean, Majid's story and Naif in the last panel, it's a success stories, and we need to share more of these success stories in the Middle East. It's very, very important. Right.
That's great. So changing gears slightly, I'd like to ask you a little bit about specifically about one of your projects, the Women Bee Buzzers. Could you tell us a little bit about that and sort of how it was going and all of that?
Yeah, sure. It's one of the best programs and I was pregnant, and it was amazing to drive 2 hours to north of Amman to see this lady. So basically the project was actually, we selected 10 women from a rural area, very conservative, and we trained them how to on beekeeping, and part of it was theoretical and practical training. Which was interesting is actually to see the practical. So I selected one of the from the community. I selected a person who actually will teach them and be with them in the field. And I tell them, I'll not give you the beehives until you go to the field and wear the uniform against bees and all of that, which was a really amazing experience. The deep, let's say, impact was actually to see this, a cultural transformation of actually men and women, being in a field, working and collaborating together. Especially, it's a conservative society, or it was a conservative village. The women, they have never been in, outside their homes. They don't work. They need that money. So the project was really, really important. And it's a pilot. I would hope to see, this project becoming on a national level. And it's the success stories were it was amazing to see this woman, discussing. And one of them, she was like, yeah, but you have to Google things. And it's, it's like, and it was so nice to hear. It was like, and she was like telling her colleagues from other women, and all of them, they were sometimes coming with kids and the babies and someone like men from the community. And it's a community. This is where you create actually a positive environment to learn and exchange knowledge, and you go to the field and you have your beehives and you exchange knowledge. So I think we created a beautiful example of such, but we need to, of course, leverage and have it on a national level. I would love to see that of such a project coming on board. And the second thing actually would be, is actually I was so reachable to them and so close because I was pregnant. I was a mother. I was coming sometimes with my husband to give the lecture. So, I felt like really with family, and we truly appreciate that. And then it's always the way how you approach people, and it should be, just genuine, because otherwise they would feel that you are coming with, you know, with something not genuine. So it's about the genuine, and it's about the, you know, your mission, and you sharing your mission with those people. And some of the incidents, they were like, you know, they were having some, you know, dispute. I was like, okay, guys, I don't want any conflicts here. It's a win-win situation. All of us together on this. We are one team, and we need to support each other. Otherwise, it won't happen. So it was that, I think, their life lesson, which was very good.
Yeah, what a great story of entrepreneurship, and also like authentic leadership. I mean, stressing a lot of the things that you talked about earlier in, you know, in your presentation. You know, one thing to note, and actually our university librarian, Anna Gold, is listening, or was listening. And she'd be, you know, I brought this up, and I did a quick search of the WPI library to see if we had, you know, the project work on beekeeping. Anna Gold is still listening. Hi, Anna. So I looked through the database to see just the sheer number of projects that have been done over the years that's very close to the work that you were doing. And it was pretty exciting to see. So, you know, something on my list after this would be actually to go through the list of projects and to send them along to you, because, you know, there's a ton of lessons that were actually learned from student involvement. One thing that I'd like to transition to is also, you know, I know that you, a couple of years ago, you went on an Arctic expedition. Could you kind of tell us all about it? I know that it was a real transformational experience for you, and maybe tell us about the experience and how that's impacted you and your work.
So it was an initiative, Norwegian initiative, founded by two Norwegian ladies, and it's called Future Talks. So I met them at the World Economic Forum, and both of them are like, they are like young global leader like me. So they told me that we want you to join us in, one of the ladies, she invited me to join them in the expedition. And the expedition was, you know, we wanted to tackle and tap on the global urgent challenges and to find solutions. So we went from Oslo to Svalbard, and from Svalbard we took like a big ship, and we went for 5 days, and we crossed 80 degrees North Pole, and we witnessed firsthand the impact of climate change, which was an eye-opening experience for me, because, you know, when I came back to Jordan, and because usually when you talk to people, some people in the Middle East, and you tell them climate change, they think that is something far away, it will never impact us. But if you tell them that, for example, in 10 years, because of climate change, you wouldn't find, you know, wheat to eat because it's affecting the countries who are producing wheat, then the people will listen. So, and it was interesting because we tackled many global challenges, and I still remember, Joe, the when we reached and we put down what is important and what is the only solution to tackle and tackle all the urgent global challenges, including climate change, is actually how to make people care, which was something, you know, it's just interesting. It's very simple, you know, just like how, you know, it just like we found out that how do you make people care? My answer to that was actually you make them, tell them something that would threaten their existence. They will make them think about their future generation. So that was one of the best experiences I ever had. And it's very interesting because we really opened up, and you find, like, you know, I realized personally that it's the only place where we had one enemy, and our enemy was in the expedition is actually climate change. So we were so unified, you know, it was no one-sided perspective, no one dictating us how to think. It was just we realized that it is, you know, we want like one power, one mission is how to tackle these global challenges and what need to be done. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And of course, when I came back, I realized that I'm like the first Jordanian who crossed 80 degrees north. So I was like famous a bit on the TV. But I haven't realized. I was like, when I came back and I was telling the story, it's like, okay, but we don't have any Jordanian who crossed 80 degrees North Pole. So I think it was And I didn't know. I just went. So it was fun. After I came back, and I of course addressed the issues in a certain way. So it's also about the approach of how is finding a way to make people care. So when you mentioned now in the last panel about water, so when you tell them that in 5 years or in 10 years, if God forbid, like you will not find the water to drink or you will not find water to take bath, then the people, oh my God, what needs to be done? And it's not, I'm not talking about, and I'm talking about on a regional level, like everyone should be concerned. And it's something that you need to act now, everyone, from our kids, from the people, everyone. So I think you need to address it on a, everyone, and it starts like from the family to the community, to the society, to nations, to the whole world. So everyone should be concerned about what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and take a question right now that was posted by Karen Bean. Karen says, thanks for joining us. And she was wondering if you could talk about the role of mentors in your own journey. You talked a little bit about mentoring others, but, could you talk a little bit about the role that, your own mentors have played in this journey that you've been on?
Oh, thank you so much for the question. I love this question. I think I love it. I think mentors and mentee, they must choose each other. So both of them should know what they are getting from each other and what they are learning from each other, and they need to look at each other as equal. So all the people I had as, and I still have as a mentor, they always look at me as an equal. So it's always about sharing thoughts and telling me, maybe no, you should do this and this. So I was lucky actually to have one of the best, mentors, and I always reach out to them. And it's also about, I wouldn't say, some of them I would actually just be vulnerable with and just discuss the things. And it's about, I always, used to tell these mentors that I'm so appreciative of their time, because what a special people in your life, the most precious thing that would they give you is actually their time and their knowledge. So the importance of mentor really had a really, and still has actually still have a very important role in my life. And I wish I will do the same to the my mentee and be this a person of being genuine and being honest to them and try to help them out in the journey, because a mentor, he doesn't tell you which crossroad to take. It just gives you the clarity. Sometimes they give you the full tells you that there is like a wide spectrum between white and black. So you need such a person. And I still always need someone, and such a people in my life. So the role was really important.
Yeah, that's great. Well, a couple of different things, but I was wondering if maybe like you could detail a little bit about some of the, visions for the future, some of the roles that you think for potential collaborations and needs, I think, both from a Jordanian perspective, but potentially for a regional perspective that, might encourage or get our faculty, our students, staff, friends, thinking, differently or being interested in types of engagement in the region.
I mean, honestly, Joe, after I heard the last panel, I don't have anything to add. It just you tackled everything, and it's important that in the region, just identifying the most urgent matters in our region and just address them and act now, because we really don't have time, whether climate change or water or food. Food security. So this is one of the issues I think that you need to tackle, and agri-tech as well. And also we need to have more collaboration on a regional level. and learn from each other. I think it's important now. And also the role of the quality education, so to fill the gaps, because it's still, in the region, some of the countries are advancing and some of the countries are still, torn because of war. So you don't want this gap to happen. And again, it's about also the human, the human progress, and recognizing that the human dignity should be recognized and respected for all. And I think this is one of the most important things. And the future, I'm looking into the technology integration of everything we do in our lives and in every industry. We are looking into working on the technological literacy, working on, I would say, the skills. And it means all type of skills to match, to match what the world will need in 5 and 10 years. So we can compete with, from our students, we can compete with others. So it's about also the skills. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, it's one of the things I find compelling in the things that you say and do, is that you have a human-centered vision of the future that is supported by the benefits of technology. And that's, that's something that it's easy to allow the technology to dictate, potentially what it is that we do, versus having technologies be in service of solving our problems. And, if we think back to the things that you've said already, it's very much focused on like human flourishing, the getting individuals to, achieve their potential. And, I think that's a really compelling message.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. It's also, I always saying like who is creating this technology, and it is, again, it's humans. So we need to take care of these humans, and that's why it's not only STEM fields. Now people are studying art and philosophy, and how to teach our kids the critical thinking, because then they will question everything. And then again, it's the privacy of our life with the existence of technology. So we need to take care of the human as a whole, and also the technology. For me, it should be and must be always only a tool. And it's a solution. It's not who we are, and it will never, be identified by, or led by robotics, unless like you watch so much of iRobot, but the movie. But it's like one of my favorite movies. But still, it's the human. So also we need to take care of the human as a whole, and we need to take care of their well-being and prosperity. And the technology, it should be only a tool. And I think this is what we need to be focused on.
So let me open, and I'm looking at the clock, and let me just sort of end with the same question that I asked the panel, which is, is there anything in preparation for this, this event, or during the event, watching the panelists speak, us talking now, is there anything that like you wish that we should have covered, or something that I should have asked, or a different point of view on something that came up earlier?
Wow. Honestly, no, honestly, which is great. It means that it was very comprehensive and hands-on, which is, I think this is what the WPI stands for, hands-on experience. So it's like a hands-on
learning by doing,
hands-on event. It's also, I would also recommend to tackle more of which will be very challenging, is like how to tap into philosophy and some of the humanitarian, even one subject when you discuss STEM fields, that would be very challenging, and it will bring a whole perspective and spectrum of things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, we had one of our professors in the humanities department who was going to be on the panel to discuss this very issue. Unfortunately, he's sick and he couldn't join us. But your point is extremely well taken. And actually, it's interesting you say that, because my way of coming into the technical fields actually is through the humanities. Humanities and social sciences. And you mentioned some science fiction, movies being favorite, one of the things that I think is the greatest, what makes science fiction a great tool is that it's not really, yeah, it's neat to hear about cool tech and like ideas, these visions for the future, but what science fiction really does is tell us about humanity in the present. And it's how our values, our ideals, all of these different things, as we take a thought experiment, which is essentially the way, you invent a setting and have technologies that influence it, but it's still humans largely that are interacting, on this stage. And that's my plug for it as well, is that, that approach of human-centered design and the role that arts and can play in ensuring that we design ethically, as we build the future.
Absolutely. I always tell my son, he's 8 years old. I always tell him you have to question everything. But of course I always regret it, because when you ask someone like you have to question everything, then you have to be like ready for that. Yeah. So we have to question everything.
Well, that's great. And Malik, I just really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm so honored that you would do it. And so, Malik and I met at a conference in Morocco 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah, global. I have to mention here, Joe, that Joe Biden was he was giving the speech at that event. It was Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And it's interesting now, thank God he's the president. So it was interesting, he was giving the speech, one of the best speeches ever about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Full embrace of the region, the potential, and a talk about entrepreneurship. So that's pretty amazing. That's how we met, and that's what brought us together today. So thank you so much, and thanks again. And let's definitely stay in touch and about potential project work and things throughout the region, and any way that we can support you and your great work. We're definitely open and available.
And anything, if you want any of your students to reach out to ask me a question, I would love to do so. I would be honored, and thank you for having me. It has been really a true pleasure and an honor.
Oh, thank you. All right. With that said, thank you everybody else. Everybody else watching. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to participate. And a big thanks to Rachel Roy for organizing all of this. Without you and the rest of the team, it just would not have gotten done. I see that, Rachel, you're already moving on to show us the next event, which will be on February 9th. And it'll feature the project work around Oceania and featuring some excellent keynote speakers. So looking forward to that event as well. Thank you very much. Have a great one.